Imagine a seemingly ordinary evening in 1930s England. A respectable man, leaving for a prearranged meeting. He returns home to find a scene of unimaginable horror. His wife brutally murdered. But what if that prearranged meeting was nothing more than an elaborate, chilling deception? What if the murderer was the very man who discovered the woman's body? Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines, where we dive deep into the most perplexing mysteries of true crime. Today we're traveling back to 1931 to a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Liverpool for a case that continues to baffle legal minds and armchair detectives alike: the unsolved murder of Julia Wallace and the man at its heart, William Herbert Wallace. Our story begins not in the gritty underworld of hardened criminals, but in the unassuming, respectable life of William Herbert Wallace. William, 52, was an insurance agent for Prudential, meticulous in his habits, quiet and known for his passion for chess. His wife, Julia, 60, was described as frail and reclusive, suffering from various ailments. They lived a modest life at 29 Wolverton Street, the Anfield district of Liverpool. A typical terraced house, outwardly unremarkable. The quiet routine of their lives was shattered on the evening of Monday, January 19, 1931. At around 6:30 p.m., the Wallace household received a telephone call. William Wallace answered. The voice on the other end was male, described as rather gruff. He introduced himself as a Mr. Qualtrough and stated he wanted to discuss an insurance policy for his daughter. He requested a meeting with Wallace for the following evening, Tuesday the 20th, at 7:30 p.m. at an address, 25 Menlove Gardens East. Wallace, ever the diligent insurance agent, noted the details. Little did he know, this seemingly innocent business call would become the central, most baffling piece of a chilling murder mystery. The next evening, Tuesday, January 20th, played out meticulously, almost too perfectly. Wallace left his home at Wolverton Street shortly after 6 p.m. His plan was to catch a series of trams that would take him across the city to Menlove Gardens East, which was a good distance away, in a more affluent area of Liverpool. His journey was precisely timed. He arrived in the Menlove Gardens area around 7 p.m. Giving him ample time before the 7:30 p.m. meeting, he began searching for 25 Menlove Gardens East. This is where the story takes a perplexing turn. He couldn't find the address. He walked up and down Menlove Gardens East, then Menlove Gardens West, and even north. The numbers didn't align, he asked a newsboy, then a local policeman. No one had heard of a 25 Menlove Gardens East. In fact, there was no Menlove Gardens East at all. There was a Menlove Gardens North, South, and West, but not an East. The address was a complete fabrication. The only thing remotely close was a disused milk stand on a corner. Perplexed and frustrated, Wallace gave up his search. It was now approaching 8 p.m. He decided to head to his local chess club, the Liverpool Central Chess Club, where he was due to play a match anyway. He arrived there around 8:40 p.m., reportedly still agitated about the wasted journey. Wallace left the chess club around 9 p.m. He made his way back home, arriving at Wolverton Street just after 9 p.m. As he approached his front door, he noticed something amiss. The gate was unlatched, which was unusual. More disturbingly, the front door was locked, which Julia never did when he was out. He tried his key, but it wouldn't turn the lock, then walked around to the back of the house where he found the back door also locked. He tried the coal shed, also locked. He finally found a window in the scullery that appeared to be unlatched. He managed to open it, climb inside, and unlock the back door from the inside. As he entered, he immediately noticed the gas lamp in the sitting room was off, which was unusual for Julia. He walked into the sitting room and was met with a scene that would forever haunt him, and indeed become a central piece of this grim puzzle. There, by the fireplace, lay Julia Wallace. She had been brutally beaten to death. A rain-proof Macintosh coat lay over her head. The sitting room was in disarray, seemingly ransacked. A small cash box, which usually contained Julia's life savings, was open and empty. Wallace immediately rushed out and sought help from a neighbor, who then called the police. The time. Approximately 9:25 p.m., the investigation had begun. The police arrived swiftly, led by Detective Inspector Leslie Brown. The scene appeared to be a robbery gone wrong. However, inconsistencies soon began to emerge. Despite the apparent ransacking of the sitting room, other valuables in the house, including William's wallet containing cash, were untouched. The gas meter, often targeted by burglars, had not been forced open. The Macintosh covering Julia's head was found to be Wallace's own. It had been folded, suggesting a deliberate placement rather than a hasty covering. The blood on it was later identified as Julia's. William Wallace's behavior also raised eyebrows. He was remarkably calm and composed at the scene. While some might attribute this to shock, the police found it unnerving. His detailed, almost clinical recounting of his movements that evening, particularly the intricate tram routes and the search for Mr. Qualtrough, seemed almost too perfect. And this is where the central challenge of the case emerged: the timeline. Could Wallace have really committed the murder himself? For him to be the killer, he would have had to make the Qualtrough call himself, return home after leaving the chess club, murder Julia, stage the scene to look like a robbery, dispose of the murder weapon, clean himself up, lock the doors from the outside, then return to his neighbors to feign discovering the body. The police calculated the time window was incredibly tight, if not impossible, for Wallace to have done all this, especially the locking of the doors from the outside. Yet, they found no evidence of forced entry and no signs of an intruder. The Mr. Qualtrough call became highly suspicious. Could Wallace have fabricated the entire thing to provide himself with a cast-iron alibi? Despite the lack of direct evidence, a murder weapon, or a clear motive, the police built a circumstantial case against William Herbert Wallace. He was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. The trial commenced in April 1931. The prosecution, led by Mr. Rigby Swift, painted Wallace as a cold, calculating killer who engineered the Qualtrough call to create an alibi. Gay. They highlighted his calm demeanor, the untidy state of the sitting room versus the untouched valuables elsewhere, and the peculiar folding of the Macintosh. They argued that the money in the cash box was a small sum, not enough for an actual robber, and that Wallace needed money due to his financial situation, though this motive was weak. The defense, led by Roland Oliver, presented Wallace as a respectable, gentle man who was the tragic victim of a bizarre and brutal crime. They focused on the impossibility of the locked doors from the outside, the lack of any bloodstains on Wallace's clothing, and the absence of a truly compelling motive. They maintained that a real Mr. Qualtrough, or an accomplice, must have committed the murder. The jury faced an immense challenge: to piece together the truth from conflicting timelines, circumstantial clues, and the ambiguous behavior of the accused. After deliberating for only an hour, they returned a verdict that shocked many: guilty. William Herbert Wallace was sentenced to death. But the story didn't end there. In May 1931, William Wallace's legal team immediately launched an appeal. This was a pivotal moment in British legal history. Appeals against murder convictions were exceedingly rare. Successful appeals were almost unheard of, particularly when the death penalty was involved. The key arguments in the appeal focused on the insufficiency of the evidence. The Court of Criminal Appeals scrutinized the prosecution's timeline and the evidence regarding the locked doors. They concluded that the evidence presented did not definitively prove Wallace's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They noted that the jury's verdict was not supported by the weight of the evidence. On May 18, 1931, less than a month after his conviction, William Herbert Wallace's conviction was quashed. He was a free man. However, his freedom came at a heavy price. His life was ruined. He was ostracized by society and forced to change his name. The brutal murder of Julia Wallace remained officially unsolved. So if William Wallace didn't kill Julia, who did? The case has spawned numerous theories over the decades. Theory 1, the Mr. Qualtrough intruder. The most obvious alternative is that a third party, possibly the mysterious Mr. Qualtrough, was indeed real. Perhaps it was a jilted client, or someone with a grievance against Wallace or Julia, who used the phone call as a ruse to ensure Wallace was out of the house. Theory 2, the son of a colleague. One persistent theory, championed by true crime authors such as Jonathan Goodman, implicates a former colleague's son, a young man named Richard Gordon Perry, who Wallace had briefly taught. Perry had a history of violence and was known to be in financial difficulty. He allegedly had knowledge of Julia's cash box. However, there was never concrete evidence to link him to the crime. Theory 3, an opportunistic burglar. It's possible an opportunistic burglar, aware of Wallace's routine or Julia's vulnerability, saw an opportunity. However, the staging of the scene and the careful selection of what was taken doesn't perfectly fit a typical robbery. Theory 4. Wallace was the killer, and the alibi was a masterstroke. Despite the acquittal, many still believe Wallace was the killer. His methodical nature, his meticulous planning, and the sheer audacity of creating such an elaborate alibi point to a calculating mind. The fact that the murder weapon was never found and no blood was found on him could be attributed to thorough planning and cleanup. The jury, after all, found him guilty. The Wallace case remains a chilling testament to the complexities of circumstantial evidence. Was William Herbert Wallace a man who committed a perfect murder and crafted an unbreakable alibi, or was he a truly innocent man victimized twice over? First by the murderer of his wife, and then by a justice system that misjudged him? Julia Wallace's killer walked free, and to this day, her case remains one of Britain's most enduring unsolved mysteries. It forces us to ask, how reliable is circumstantial evidence, and can a seemingly flawless alibi truly hide a perfect crime? What are your thoughts on the Wallace case? You believe William Wallace was guilty, or was he truly an innocent man caught in an impossible situation? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this dive into a lesser-known true crime fascinating, please hit that like button, subscribe to Beyond the Headlines for more chilling stories, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.